They were a band that had it all: fame, hit records, and a sound that was unmistakably their own. But behind the scenes, that success was hiding a storm few people truly understand. Today, we're going to uncover what really happened to Creedence Clearwater Revival, and the decision that made them disappear at the very peak of their career. Let's begin. It all began with 4 California teenagers who shared one obsession: music. In the late 1950s, John Fogerty, his older brother Tom Fogerty, and their friends Stu Cook and Doug Clifford formed a high school band called the Blue Velvets. They played in garages, school dances, and family gatherings, dreaming that one day they might become rock and roll stars. Even as a teenager, John was already showing unusual songwriting talent and a creative drive that set him apart from the rest. But that same intensity, that need for control and perfection, would later become something much harder to manage, as we'll soon see. By the mid-1960s, determined to take the next step, they signed with a small San Francisco label called Fantasy Records. It seemed like a breakthrough. But it wasn't all good news. The label forced them to change their name to the Gollywogs without even asking for their input. The singles they released under that name barely made a ripple. And this marked the beginning of their first real conflict with the label. Still, they didn't quit. They kept playing. They kept recording. They kept learning from failure. Everything changed in 1967. When producer Saul Zaentz purchased Fantasy Records and offered them a fresh start. This time, they were allowed to choose their own name: Creedence Clearwater Revival. Creedence came from the name of a friend. Clearwater was inspired by a beer brand. And Revival symbolized exactly what they were experiencing: a rebirth. With a new identity and a sharper, swamp-infused sound, John Fogerty stepped fully into the role of creative leader. The band was finally ready to take off. What they didn't know was that this revival would bring not only glory, but also the beginning of a long and turbulent story that was just about to unfold. Creedence Clearwater Revival released their self-titled debut album. And almost immediately they caught the public's attention with a fiery rendition of Susie Q. That blend of raw rock, deep blues, and unmistakable Southern flavor had something magnetic about it.
Oh, Susie Q.
But that was only the beginning. The following year, Creedence exploded creatively in a way few bands in history ever have. In 1969 alone, they released 3 albums: Bayou Country, Green River, and Willie and the Poor Boys. An almost unbelievable streak. Songs like Proud Mary, Bad Moon Rising, Green River, and Fortunate Son became instant classics. In just 12 months, Creedence went from a rising promise to the #1 band in America. If you believe songs like these just aren't made anymore, then you're one of us. Make sure to like and subscribe so the legacy of this music never fades. Now, let's continue. Their popularity grew so massive that they were invited to perform at the most iconic counterculture festival of them all: Woodstock. But what should have been a crowning moment turned into a frustrating experience. They took the stage in the middle of the night, when much of the crowd was exhausted, many already asleep. Disappointed with the performance, John Fogerty made a decision without consulting the rest of the band. He refused to allow their set to appear in the festival's official documentary. It shocked his bandmates. But it wouldn't be the last time. By then, John's obsessive perfectionism was beginning to show. He wanted control over everything: the songwriting, the arrangements, the sound, even the band's public image. And if something didn't meet his standards, he simply erased it. That iron-fisted leadership worked, as long as the hits kept coming. But behind the scenes, cracks were starting to form. Fogerty's unilateral decisions weren't always welcomed. Distrust toward the record label was growing. Financial tensions were simmering. And all of it was about to change the destiny of Creedence Clearwater Revival forever. After the tension surrounding Woodstock, the band released Cosmo's Factory and Pendulum in 1970. Albums that proved they were still at the top of their creative and commercial powers. But something no longer felt right. Inside Creedence Clearwater Revival, the atmosphere was growing heavier by the day. The tours were exhausting. The pressure never stopped. And John Fogerty continued tightening his grip on every artistic decision. Stu Cook and Doug Clifford began to wonder whether they were still part of a band, or simply sidemen in what was becoming the Fogerty Project. What had once been an unstoppable hit-making machine now felt more like a prison, a place where there was no room for dissent. Around that same time, John came to realize that the contract they had signed with Fantasy Records was deeply exploitative. The band was selling millions of records and filling arenas, yet a massive portion of the profits was slipping through their fingers and into the hands of the label. Frustrated and feeling cheated, John made an extreme move. He reached an agreement with Saul Zaentz and Fantasy's lawyers to redirect some of the band's income into a bank account in Nassau, Bahamas, hoping to shield part of the money and regain some financial control. It was a risky maneuver, and once again, he made the decision without consulting the others. What seemed clever at first would eventually turn into a disaster. Years later, the musicians discovered that Zaentz had withdrawn the funds from the Nassau account without informing them or providing any clear accounting. The money simply vanished. Legally, it was Murky who actually controlled that account. The management had been so careless that Cook and Clifford were unable to recover what was rightfully theirs. What John had presented as a strategy to protect the band's earnings ended up leaving them with nothing. Even if he hadn't foreseen that outcome, for his bandmates it marked a breaking point. Now, Stu and Doug were no longer questioning only Fogerty's artistic dominance. They were questioning his integrity. They felt less like partners and more like disposable employees. The group that had once been united by music was now fractured by secrecy, unilateral decisions, and growing resentment. That lost money wasn't just a financial blow. It was the precise moment when Creedence stopped being a united band. Then, in February 1971, Tom Fogerty, John's older brother, officially announced his departure. He was tired of being sidelined, tired of the constant conflicts with John and the label. With Tom gone, there was no denying it anymore. Creedence was broken from within. But the most astonishing twist was still ahead. In a desperate attempt to save the project, John Fogerty would propose a solution that would change everything, and not for the better. After Tom's departure, John Fogerty stunned everyone with an unexpected announcement. From that moment on, each remaining member of Creedence Clearwater Revival would write and sing their own songs. On paper, it sounded like creative equality. But to Stu Cook and Doug Clifford, it felt like forced democracy. Fogerty wasn't stepping back out of artistic conviction. He was exhausted. Tired of internal criticism. Tired of the tension. And his proposal, while seemingly fair, carried the weight of a quiet punishment. That decision gave birth to Mardi Gras, Creedence's final studio album, released in April 1972. For the first, and only time, Cook and Clifford contributed their own compositions and took turns as lead vocalists. Fogerty, meanwhile, sang only on the songs he wrote and refused to participate in the others. The result was disastrous. The album lacked cohesion. It sounded fractured, forced. The critics were merciless. Rolling Stone famously referred to it as Fogerty's Revenge, suggesting that the band's leader had allowed the ship to sink just to prove that without him, it couldn't stay afloat. And in some ways, that assessment wasn't entirely wrong. Cook and Clifford's songs simply couldn't reach the heights of the band's earlier anthems. The magic was gone. The unity was gone. And it no longer sounded like the Creedence the world had fallen in love with. The band embarked on one final tour later that year, but the disillusionment was impossible to hide. The emotional damage was too deep, the fractures too severe. Then, on October 16, 1972, barely 4 years after reaching the summit of American rock, Creedence Clearwater Revival officially announced their breakup. It was abrupt, but it wasn't surprising. What had once been the biggest band in America faded away, leaving behind a trail of unforgettable hits and unresolved conflicts. And yet, the most painful chapter was still ahead. The breakup wasn't the end of the drama. It was the beginning of a long battle of lawsuits, resentment, and irreversible losses. After the breakup of Creedence Clearwater Revival, peace never came. Instead of healing old wounds, the silence only deepened the resentment. John Fogerty tried to start over. In 1973, he released a solo album under the pseudonym The Blue Ridge Rangers, playing every instrument himself. But he was still carrying the weight of Fantasy Records, the label that continued to control the rights to Creedence's catalog. Meanwhile, Stu Cook and Doug Clifford began a legal battle of their own. In 1978, they sued over the money that had been secretly transferred, alongside Saul Zaentz and Fantasy's lawyers, into a bank in the Bahamas. Years later, in 1983, a court partially ruled in their favor and ordered Fantasy to repay them $8.6 million. It sounded like justice, but it came far too late to restore the trust that had already been destroyed. Fogerty, for his part, was fighting a different war, one against his own past. In 1985, he released Centerfield, a powerful comeback album that became a major success. But the old conflict with Fantasy resurfaced almost immediately. Zaentz sued him for self-plagiarism, claiming that his new song, The Old Man Down the Road, was too similar to Run Through the Jungle, a Creedence song, written by Fogerty himself.
Take a thunder from the mountain.
He was forced to take the stand and prove that he wasn't copying his own work. He won the case, but the battle didn't end there. In another song, Sans Kant Dans, he openly mocked Zaentz, which led to yet another lawsuit and forced him to change the lyrics. The legal disputes became relentless, and as each former member moved on with his life, the bonds that once united them continued to erode beyond repair. The deepest wound came in 1990 with the passing of Tom Fogerty. He died due to complications stemming from a medical error. The tragedy was compounded by something even more painful. He and John had never reconciled. The brothers barely spoke during their final years, separated by ego, disappointment, and decades of unresolved tension. After Tom's death, John later admitted that he had never managed to forgive him, nor make peace, and that regret would stay with him forever. So while fans around the world kept singing Creedence's songs, the men behind that music were living in the bitter echo of what they once were. And yet, despite all that pain, time, slowly, would begin to offer a different kind of redemption. In 1993, Creedence Clearwater Revival was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was a long overdue honor, a moment of recognition, but it was also deeply uncomfortable. John Fogerty agreed to attend, yet he flatly refused to share the stage with Stu Cook and Doug Clifford. He performed the band's classics, yes, but he did so alongside guest musicians, while his former bandmates watched from the audience, stunned. That gesture made one thing painfully clear: the wounds were still open. 2 years later, however, Cook and Clifford chose a different path. In 1995, they formed Creedence Clearwater Revisited, a tribute project that kept the original band's music alive. They toured the world, playing to nostalgic audiences who still longed to hear those timeless songs performed live. Time slowly began to shift the landscape. In 2004, Fantasy Records was acquired by Concord Records. With Saul Zaentz no longer in the picture, Fogerty finally found more favorable ground to reconnect with his own legacy. The new label executives welcomed him back. And something remarkable happened. After years of refusing to perform Creedence songs live, Fogerty began playing them again in concert. Fans could once more hear him sing "Fortunate Son" and "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" in his own voice. The band never reunited. The personal relationships never truly healed. But for many fans, it felt as though at least part of Creedence's spirit was breathing again. The most symbolic moment came in January 2023, when John Fogerty finally regained control of the rights to the songs he had written more than half a century earlier. He purchased the majority of the catalog that had remained in the label's hands, bringing one of the longest and most painful legal battles in music history to a close. With that act, a cycle was completed. A story marked by talent and glory, but also division and regret. Creedence Clearwater Revival never returned as a band. But their music, born from imagined bayous, gritty guitars, and lyrics full of soul, remains alive and untouched. And now, at last, it rests in the hands of the man who created it. And so, while Creedence Clearwater Revival faded away at the very peak of their career, another unforgettable voice was quietly battling her own demons. Click now and join me as we uncover the tragic story of Karen Carpenter, one of the most beautiful and haunting voices of the 1970s. Hit that link, and I'll see you there, my fellow rock fan.